Bom dia. Good morning, everybody. Unfortunately, we Scandinavians can speak several languages, but very few Portuguese. So this is why I have to speak in English. We move from police force to teachers and teacher education. However, I couldn't agree more with the previous presenter about the importance of partnerships, networks, and strong citizenship. So these themes are also forming the ground for our teacher education program together with the Brazilian Ministry of Education. The name of the program is Professores para o futuro, Teachers for the Future. I could say that learning nowadays is a basic need. It is not enough that we eat, we get poor drinking water, and we can socialize. But we couldn't face problems of our days today, or not to talk about the future, without learning. Learning besides our daily work, in hobbies, and of course in schools, in federal institutes in this case. And the problems we are facing nowadays, they are really threatening our common future. So learning in international partnerships becomes extremely critical. These quite big challenges have been behind when we started talks about a common teacher education program. And I could say that I do not speak for myself or for my university, but more and more deeply I speak about and for our partnerships. And then I take the next slide to present the basic partnerships. Two countries, Finland, like a small baby nation compared to Brazil, we consist only of 5 million people. And this is very critical because every citizen is a very necessary participant of our production life. We do not have very strong natural resources. So our natural resources are brains and competencies. Our country is quite democratic in several areas, and also we higher education institutions can act quite independently in international arenas. So I do not mention here the Ministry of Education from Finland. However, of course, it was supporting us in the very beginning and is still doing that. But embassies, in the Finnish way, our culture is bottom-up. So our bottom is the embassies of Finland and Brazil, who have been very helpful in the very beginning of these partnerships. But later and later, they become more emerged by nature. And I speak about social innovation, which benefits strongly from technological media, helping us to communicate and helping the teachers to learn in international partnerships. 3 universities of applied sciences are providing the services for the Brazilian Ministry of Education. The vet teachers study in Tampere and in Hämeenlinna. And then Haaga-Helia from Helsinki provides us also teaching staff. And the participants of the program, they come always from federal institutes, Instituto Federal. Ministry of Education, SETEC, has been the brains of this program from the very beginning, and to bring real impact, real relevance for the Brazilian federal institutes, we have been talking quite detailed, in the first place about the needs, and then transferred them into a program, which later became to be called professores para o futuro. CNPq helps us enormously in organizing this in practice. So far, we are covering many areas in Brazil to a certain extent. Of course, if I here use a Finnish metaphor, snowball, which once thrown forms more and more snowballs. It spreads like a network from these participants who then teach their peers back in Brazil. They organize courses and showcase examples what they have been learning in Finland already when they study there. The first group started in August last year, and they are soon to graduate in May. However, they started spreading their experiences in midwinter, Finnish winter, which is like from December to February. And now when they are back to Brazil, so they do that hands-on in a concrete way. Later I will show you examples. However, there are some federal states where we do not have yet participants, but we have very strong hopes for the program continuity. So the strategic aims of the program were originally to support vocational and professional education in certain areas, sectors which are important for the Brazilian economy. But they always combine that with pedagogy, so that teaching would become more respective for the needs in the world of work, more competence-based, more multidisciplinary, more applied, more project-based like engineering work is in practice. And then Finland became the cooperation partner in the year 2012. My example deals with the first group, especially the examples, but as said, so we are following the same principles based on evidence. We do not have big needs to change the program. Why Finland? Such a small country. So far, in a rather harsh climate. That kind of a climate has maybe made a difference, so that every Finnish citizen has had the need to survive and learn and be rather independent. And these cultural differences, basic notions of a human being, they are providing the ground for comparison, becoming more aware of your own thoughts and your own culture here in Brazil. And this is one of the starting points when you become a real professional in teaching. You become more aware of your own notions and of your own background, of your own culture. We never think that something is better than the other in these very critical and basic human concepts. However, by comparing, we become much more aware of, for example, especially the student-centered teaching practices and principles. As I said, every citizen in Finland is necessary, and we cannot leave any child or adult behind. I say adults because especially nowadays when production life is facing enormous restructuring, so we have to provide also adult learners with new skills and competencies. Somebody says that in 5 years everybody has to learn a totally new profession. But how can the teachers do their job in that kind of a learning environment? In Finland, approximately half of the students from secondary level education, from the elementary level education, they choose vocational. So it is not the second choice, it is an equal choice. 1:1 go to vocational and general education. Earlier, our nation was striving for more higher and higher education. But the needs in the world of work have made a change. Nowadays, we are striving for more and more relevance. And this doesn't necessarily mean that education should always be higher. It can be, especially when we speak about applied kind of universities, bachelor and master degrees in that sector of education. Our teachers are quite autonomous. For example, curricula is made locally. Although small, our nation is also rather diverse. We have a bit stronger cities and bigger ones, and then very many rural areas. And the economy differs enormously in areas. For example, in eastern Finland, we have very scarce population, and the teachers have to be very responsive to the local needs in making the curricula for the university or vocational institution. That wouldn't be possible if the teachers wouldn't have the skills to analyze the needs in the local labor market and have the certain responsibility and degree of freedom in suggesting new restructuring in the curricula. Of course, there must be some kind of a organization to really make decisions. And normally it is the rector of the university or a vocational institution which finally makes the decision over the curricula based on teachers' suggestion, which are based on the local needs, on the local labor markets. So somehow this brings autonomy and a feeling of respect for the teachers themselves and also for the world of work, so that they see that teachers are like running in the world of work in the best examples. Of course, not always. It would be lying if I say that every teacher in our country is an active member in these networks. However, the majority is. Globalization is a very critical issue in a small country because we are like a small boat in big waves, and we have to be very responsive, learn quickly, make necessary changes in the educational provision, and be very, very eager on skills and real-life competencies. By competencies, we mean always combined knowledge and real ability to perform something. So they must be combined, and then we also have to integrate languages, ECT, problem solving, creativity, not only the theoretical subjects into our teaching. This is made a bit easier, I could say, in our country where we have a relevant consensus concerning the importance of education. But our country is no educational heaven. Of course, we also have to survive with decreasing taxpayers. Our nation is becoming more and more grey, and we have to make decisions over organizations and over the amounts of education modes which we can provide. So far, our solution has been quite simple structures and with lots of local freedom in curricula. So this has been proven also quite cost economic. And of course, evidence and research-based education as well other public services is a necessity. And for example, transparency is brought to existence so with this way. There's something wrong with this tool. Could I please have I would like to go to the next slide. There I will present more detail about the program provided, that one. The programs which we are providing for the students in Finland. They could be easily illustrated with two equal pathways where you always can cross. You can cross from the general to the vocational, and you can continue throughout your life your studies. So there are no dead ends. And this means that if you study in the vocational education, you can quite early start also dreaming about your future career. In vocational secondary level, you can take modules from higher education to your qualification. But if you need extra support and you are not the best learner in your class, so you can study a bit longer. And from next August, every vocational degree is counted by credit points, not time at all. In international cooperation, this means that we can more easily transfer the credit points. And in the institutions, this means that if you already possess competencies when coming to the school, so you can demonstrate them and get qualifications without sitting on a chair in a vocational institution. And this is for many adults a very nice possibility. But the program today is most important, the teacher education program. Here you see the basic modules, what kind of targets we are having, and the notion of competencies, combining knowing, doing, and being as a teacher, being aware of your philosophical, political standpoints is very important. We learn by doing. Of course, when you come to Finland from a country which is so different, so first you have to study a bit basic theoretical things to become aware of the common knowledge base behind the program. But as soon as it is possible, we take the teachers to classes to discover, experience teaching and learning in the Finnish schools. And also to analyze critically our pitfalls. We might be blind to certain areas in our system too. And the participants so far have been wonderful participants in the sense that they are open and give us also positive feedback and criticism. They do not all the time only praise and say that you are so beautiful and nice people and educators. So this really helps us learn together. As I said, information technology is here part of our innovation, but we do not rely on technology to do the job for us in learning. The teachers, in most cases, they come from technological areas, and these theoretical learning processes combined with the technology are getting much support from the information technology. Somehow it is like a new language for us. It's a tool to express, and it really combines people very early. Here I present some case examples from our e-learning environments where several tools are combined to make learning visible and especially make implementation visible. They are only some examples. Not all the students here, although I should have loved to pick them all. They are coming from so different areas of expertise and production life and also federal states. But in the final seminar, we give them all the voice and the publicity, and also later in August in a publication which will be delivered by net, so that it will easily be transferred to other contexts. Here they are telling about their experiences. For example, Vicente has been organizing courses for his colleagues. The first one consisted of 100 participants, and then he evaluates that he has really learned that notion of self-evaluation, constant learning by doing, and the doing model, like going in circles. By the way, they also did a study in our university. They were given a quality audit education, and then they acted as auditors in one class, gave us feedback for our own work. This photo is from Pro Academy in Tampere, which is a rather big city when remembering our small size. And they have a wonderful entrepreneurship education module, locations, but the content is the most important, not the nice learning places. However, it is good to notice that in most cases, chairs and tables in the Finnish schools are organized as round tables, as team learning locations. And here Cristiano is explaining his experiences, how he is improving in student motivation area, which is very often the problem when teaching is too teacher-centered. So the students can lose motivation to listen. However, the vice versa can also happen. We have already heard some problems from our participants that they can be criticized for not doing their jobs when they ask the students to be more active than they used to be. This is, however, the point, because learning for a career, lifelong learning, is not possible if the students are expecting somebody to teach them in the business. There are several jobs and professions which do not really exist without you learning all the time on your workplace. And this is the way how we are trying to teach all our teachers in Finland in teacher education modules, as well also our students in schools, that they are responsible over their own learning and over their own careers in the future. There are no permanent and secure jobs in the world of work anymore. Pedro is there. He's quite a theoretical participant. He continues his studies in the doctoral area already now, so he is here presenting Finnish education system and reflecting on that and telling his experiences. And here Regina, who works on honey production and is heavily working on research on that area and has already got some grants for research, future research, postdoctoral research on that. So several examples. And then we go to the quality assurance and assuring the impact of education. Somehow it is maybe necessary to first say some few words about the quality concepts in Finland. Our universities, as well as vocational institutions, have great autonomy also when talking about assuring the quality. We have an independent body who every 6th year audits our quality assurance systems. And I could say the formula, how that is done, has great emphasis on assuring the impact of quality work. Not at all that we have standardized processes, because there is no standardized world of work nowadays anymore. And especially when talking about universities of applied sciences, they very often have to offer tailored programs to meet the needs of the world of work. So every university has to have processes where they derive their quality assurance system from strategies and from fixed principles of good quality work. But that kind of impact frame of reference means that feedback really has to be used to develop the programs. HAMK was the first in Finland to get the advanced label in quality audit last season, if I say like that, and now we are striving to get it also the next time. And we all have a very well established quality assurance system. It is not that we have to have that, but we like to work like that. And it was from the very beginning a necessity to make this quality assurance system a participatory process among all the stakeholders of the vet teachers for the future program. So it must be fit for purpose. So we have to listen carefully the Ministry of Education here in Brazil. What is really important in a strategic level? And then implement that. And that kind of implementation must then be posed to criticism and quality feedback by the participants, and not only them, but also later federal institutes, because that is the real life context for the participants to apply. So if they are happy and like us, it is not enough. Of course, it is important because impact is not just happening. If you do not have the motivation, if we are not able to motivate the participants in Finland to continue the process of change, which often is rather demanding. It might be even heartbreaking to go back to your home institution and hear questions like, why on earth should we change good practices? Or from parents or students, no, we do not want to be working like you are asking us. In some cases this happens, but I could say that most of our participants have been so far telling about rather positive feedback for their ideas and implementing later. So here we need the support from the ministry and federal management and even the highest leadership level from federal institutes to make impact really long-lasting, a long-lasting process for the future. So this kind of an relevancy approach to quality assurance is our key, and we are very open to transfer also this feedback to the next group so that we learn all the time how to make the program better. The networks which have been building are so far on individual levels, they are on institutional levels, and now we have some emerging good ideas also on the federal state level. They are ideas, but I have a strong belief that they will become true, and this means that this, which was originally only a small teacher education program, will become like a social movement for better education, both in Brazil and in Finland, especially when talking about vocations and professions. So it is truly a citizenship program too, from bottom up and from up to bottom, both directions. I only mention here the media tools which are used, and they are not the only ones. Facebook is very important, funny, but however it combines professional and private lives very easily, and we have noticed that our participants like to show what they are doing in Finland. Of course they pick some critical areas which might be a little bit different from the everyday practice, but not only the luxury parts, but what they do and what they notice is different from Brazil. They like to make photos and present them. And one thing I have been recognizing very early is that they like to illustrate their learning in circles, in round tables, and not in a hierarchical sense, but they are very, very often in crowds. And that is something which appeals me a lot. So the individual approach to learning or teaching has like disappeared. And nobody wants to be above others, but they want to be in crowds, helping each others. And this is, I'm a researcher by nature and professor, so I cannot read photos without analyzing them. So I have really very early noticed that notion. And here, the last part somehow for the participants, we mentioned the alumni network, but of course we have to see these other partnerships as products of the program and follow them carefully by research. Several research proposals and presentations have already been done in Finland and internationally. We have got through into certain conferences to publish what has been happening, and not only us, I do not mean only the organizers of the program, I mean the participants, which is much more important for us, that they speak for themselves. So from these first two groups, the preliminary findings to develop the program, so no major changes, but the reality testing, especially for rural areas, is important. So far, the most participants have been from big cities in Brazil, but also the rural areas needs attention, and the deprived students, we have to support them. That would be one thing which we have to consider carefully next time. And what has been already happening during this week, so we have had very good talks with CONIF about the support for the participants and the new ideas, new projects. So we in both sides have a desire to work on the management and leadership level of the federal institutes. And then the networks among federal institutes, of course they are very distant from each other, which make that difficult, but we have tools to have joint course implementations and common teaching projects in the future. This photo is, by the way, from Lapland, and to be honest, so we do not have all the time snow in Finland, but it isn't maybe the first place to go if you want to have a vacation, if you want to have a warm place where to be. But we have 4 seasons. That would be closer to the truth. 4 different seasons, and that has been very interesting for many of the participants from the agricultural areas and biology to learn about a country with 4 seasons. The support structures for the future, they are the same as mentioned already, but I have a feeling that when I present, for example, after half a year, I could mention several local actors as well research grants which support our program to be maybe a bit different and to have new forms for disseminating the original idea for professors for the future. Here the blue and white sky of Finland is forming a background for our 2 nations to work together today and also in the future. I thank you for your interest, and I'm very willing to communicate later. You will have the email addresses and possibilities to easily ask for more questions also later, not only today, but now it is the possibility to talk for a while before the next presenter. Thank you very much.
Nós agradecemos a professora Seija. Tem um livro? Tem um livro da pergunta? Vamos abrir para 3 perguntas. Mais uma vez solicitamos que o interessado... Ali já tem aqui, ó. Já tem uma ali. Solicitamos a gentileza que o senhor ou a senhora se identifique, diga seu nome, o órgão a que pertence.
Bom dia, né? Eu sou da Universidade Federal de Roraima. Eu gostaria de perguntar à professora quais são as expectativas dela para formação dessa nova turma que ela pretende formar, dessa parceria dela com o Brasil, do programa.
I could say that my expectations have been already met to a certain extent during this week when talking about the future of the program. So some kind of continuous support structure for the participants has been already settled, and the platform for developing and keeping the communication flowing from both sides. And of course, more emphasis on the federal state needs, because the context is we have been becoming more and more aware of the diverse needs in Brazil. So I think that is something we have to concentrate the program development in the future.
Mais um. Depois nós temos mais um participante que quer fazer pergunta.
Bom dia, meu nome é Ida. Eu gostaria de saber se na Finlândia a educação para a área rural, populações rurais, é diferente da destinada às áreas urbanas e como vocês administram essas diferenças culturais.
Cultural differences between rural areas and our cities, which are at the biggest city being Helsinki, Espoo, Vantaa, close to each other, altogether 1 million people, they are not that big. The problem is distances and the promise that every citizen is able to learn for free and get very individual teaching. Also support for the possible learning difficulties. That is the question. So the culture in rural areas and in cities, especially when comparing young people, doesn't differ too much. And also the choices of students are quite close. But we cannot afford to organize very expensive and rare educational sectors all over the country, and we have to make decisions how to organize this in practice. More e-learning, more on-the-job learning, they are already in use. And then maybe we have to face a quite unpleasant situation that we cannot provide all the vocational sectors in all the areas in that extent than we have been doing so far. So that is maybe our case. And of course, enterprises, they vary. The enterprises in rural areas are smaller. That is not bad, however, because very often family business and small enterprises are more rooted, and they don't give up during economical flows, vice versa. They might be even safer workplaces. So that kind of a situation, I could briefly say, is with us in Finland concerning that question, rural and urban areas.
Mais uma pergunta? A última pergunta?
Yeah, just wanted to find out, can you comment on any statistical information? Can you comment on any statistical information or evidence that you may have in terms of students following the traditional approach to a degree compared with the vocational approach? And also graduate outcomes after they graduate. Do you have any evidence to say that those who have done vocational training and have maybe the applied skills do better or worse compared to the other students who follow primary, secondary education into BSc degree and therefore?
Yeah, they go to different jobs. That's of course true, and of course we follow up them statistically. When I say we, it means the statistics of Finland. So we follow their paths, and the comparison between salaries, for example, is not a habit in Finland. We do not collect, and especially we do not use that kind of information, because we regard more on the relevance issue for individual and the society than the salaries. And we have quite low differences between people in general. Our taxation is rather heavy for rich people, and this means that we have quite equal opportunities for people. So we do have indicators to follow up, and especially we are interested in people getting recruited and being able to perform the chosen jobs they are having. International normal indicators.
Bom, agradecemos mais uma vez a professora. Professor Herman Santos, mestre em Administração Pública da Universidade Federal de Lavras, vai entregar uma lembrança para a professora Seija.